On August 17, 1943, soaring at 26,000 feet over Regensburg, Germany, Lieutenant Robert Rosie Rosenthal peers through plexiglass smeared with blood as a nearby B-17 Flying Fortress bursts into flames right off his wingtip. The plane, dubbed Sentimental Journey and loaded with 10 crew members he'd shared drinks with just the previous evening, spins wildly downward, spewing dark smoke and fragments of bodies. His own aircraft, Rosie's Riveters, trembles violently while 20mm cannon rounds slam into the body. One projectile shreds the radio room. Another blasts past the waist gunner's spot, sparing Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez by a mere 6 inches. A further hit slices into the No. 3 engine, which starts belching oil and flames right away. Rosenthal tallies the fiery wrecks plummeting from the group: 7, 8, 9, 12, 15. Briefings for the mission had predicted losses around 5% of the squadron, yet the grim arithmetic playing out beyond his cockpit view points to something nearer 25%. The issue isn't with the bombers themselves. The B-17 stands as an engineering triumph. 4 powerful engines, 50 caliber machine guns, protective armor, and fuel tanks that seal against leaks. No, the trouble lies in how the Germans have pinpointed the ideal targets. Messerschmitt Bf-109s buzz around the fleet like furious wasps, focusing their attacks on key spots: the cockpit, the power plants, the wing attachments. They're avoiding pointless sprays, instead striking vulnerabilities with deadly accuracy. Back in England, at 8th Air Force Headquarters, Colonel Curtis LeMay stands rigidly in the control center, scanning casualty summaries with an expression as unyielding as stone. The Regensburg-Schwäbisch Hall assault, what history will remember as Black Thursday, claims 60 B-17s in one go. That's 600 lives vanished, but the recurring damage patterns haunt his sleepless nights, planes limping back bare scars in identical zones, wings pocked with punctures, tails ripped to shreds, hulls holed like sieves. The Army Air Force's fix seems straightforward: bolster those vulnerable sections with extra protection. Fortify the wings, brace the tail assemblies, beef up the side armor. Technicians at Wright Field have blueprints ready. Additional shielding over the wing clusters of impacts, reinforced covers for the rear, toughened panels along the hull where shots bunch up. It makes perfect sense. It's the prudent choice. Every strategist nods in agreement, only Hitch. In a modest workspace at Columbia University's statistics unit, a 42-year-old mathematician sporting thick lenses and a thick Hungarian lilt pores over identical reports of destruction. Abraham Wald pores over the figures thrice, then grabs a sheet and starts diagramming. His forthcoming idea will leave every tactician stunned, convinced he's gone mad. His fix? Reinforce everywhere but the spots riddled with holes. Commanders will deem it insane. Designers will see it as reversed logic. Flight specialists will label it statistically absurd. They'll all be mistaken. And Abraham Wald is on the verge of preserving more U.S. lives than any armament devised across the whole conflict. What the brass hasn't grasped is their total misreading of the evidence. They're trapped in a basic reasoning error so profound and perilous it's claiming lives by the thousands. Abraham Wald spots the truth they miss. Those bullet marks under scrutiny mark the survivors that returned. The lethal strikes? They're on the craft that didn't. Act 2. Context and misguided fixes, 620 words. The plating dilemma kicks off in 1942 as US B-17 Flying Fortresses launch their initial long-range strikes into Nazi-held Europe. The initial outcomes prove disastrous. Come August 17, 1942, 12 B-17s strike the Rouen-Sotteville rail yards in France, the inaugural U.S. heavy bomber operation over the continent. One goes missing, an 8% casualty figure, harsh, yet endurable. 3 months on, November 23, 1942, sees 31 B-17s hit the U-boat pens at St. Nazaire. 3 don't make it back, still tolerable. But by summer 1943, the numbers shift to lethal. The second Schweinfurt raid on October 14, 1943, devours 60 out of 291 dispatched bombers, hitting a 20.6% attrition mark. At such a pace, whole squadrons would evaporate in mere weeks. Even worse, the ones that limp home resemble airborne junkyard relics, scores of perforations, mangled flight controls, engines mangled by shell bursts. Certain machines touch down with more than 200 verified strikes. Colonel Malcolm C. Grow, top medical officer for the 8th Air Force, tours a base in England and observes the battered birds arriving. He tallies the breaches, charts their positions, snaps shots of the injury layouts. The proof appears irrefutable. Wings endure severe pounding, clusters of dozens of openings near the fuel cells, hull flanks punctured repeatedly. Tail units torn by heavy ordnance, aft gun stations bear focused battering. Grow forwards his analysis to right field with a pressing directive. Install protective plating over the hit zones. Where wings absorb the blows, armor them, wings. When tails take heavy fire, protect the tails. The design team nods in full agreement. The Army Air Force's supply branch calls an urgent session. Experts from Boeing, Consolidated, and Lockheed join in. All review identical records. Images of battered planes limping back, riddled with impacts. The group reaches a clear verdict. Strengthen the sections displaying the most wear. Just one issue arises: how to add protection without overburdening the plane to the point of flight failure. A B-17 tips the scales at 65,000 pounds when packed for mission. Each ounce of shielding means sacrificing bombs, gas, or rounds. The specialists figure they can squeeze in maybe 500 pounds of extra plating before seriously harming operations. Yet 500 pounds falls short of covering every vulnerable spot in the reports. Tough decisions loom. Right field floats option Alpha, focus shielding on the wings, home to the fuel holds. The logic holds firm. Safeguard the tanks, save the plane. Projected load, 480 pounds. Boost to survival odds, 15%. Boeing fires back with option Beta. Spread the plates over the body to shield pilot areas. Preserve the aviators. Ensure missions continue. Load estimate, 520 pounds. Gain, 18%. Consolidated offers option Gamma, thick plating on the rear where tail gunners suffer steep losses. Guard the gunners, sustain the guns. Weight, 445 pounds. Uplift, 12%. Every idea aligns neatly with the hit patterns. Each adheres to solid design logic. Each draws fierce backing from seasoned plane builders. Arguments stretch over weeks. Sessions in the Pentagon, expert gatherings at Wright Field, intense talks in England linking field leaders with base officers. Colonel Curtis LeMay, head of the 305th Bomb Wing, pushes hard for wing protection. Losing power or fuel spells, doom. Shield the wings. Brigadier General Haywood S. Hansel Jr. pushes back. Fallen crews can't operate. Fortify the nose. General Ira C. Eaker, leading the 8th Air Force, demands proof, solid figures, rigorous study. In February 1943, Columbia University's stats team gets a pressing call from the brass. They want number crunchers to probe plane weaknesses and pinpoint the best spots for armor. The SRG stands out as a quirky outfit, non-military math whizzes tackling secret war puzzles. The lineup boasts stars of U.S. math: Milton Friedman, soon-to-be Nobel laureate, Leonard Jimmy Savage, Frederick Musteller, W. Allen Wallace, and Abraham Wald. Wald emerges as the squad's riddle. Hungarian-born and Jewish, he escaped Nazi-controlled Europe in 1938. His English comes haltingly. No Army time under his belt. He's never laid eyes on a B-17 beyond pics. Zero flight know-how, no tech training. Nothing to credential him for warplane advice. What he brings? A brain that spots hidden trends. The brass drops off crates of hit logs, shots of perforated craft, and charts of survivor impacts. They want results in 14 days. Wald delivers in 3 and flips every pro's advice upside down. Act 3. Hero enters, 520 words. Abraham Wald hardly seems poised to upend warplane tactics. At 42, he measures 5'7", lean bordering on skeletal, with specks on wires that slide off his nose. His outfits drape baggy like wash on a line. His English carries a dense Hungarian lilt, forcing peers to ask for repeats thrice over. His Columbia digs scream disorder, stacks of notes teetering, math rags strewn everywhere, a board scrawled with formulas resembling modern art to stats novices. Yet his past paints another picture. Raised in Cluj, Romania, in 1902 by Jewish parents, Wald flashed genius young. At 23, he snagged his math PhD from Vienna's university. By 30, his papers on shapes and econ stats drew nods alongside titans like John von Neumann. Then, 1938 hit. Nazis swallowed Austria. Jewish academics got the boot. Wald, toiling in Vienna, went from expert to exile overnight, life on the line. He bolted to the States with scraps, outfits, tomes, his calc pads. Landing in New York, English a whisper, jobless with $43 to his name. The Cowles Commission for Economics Research scooped him up by fluke. They sought sharp stats work, he priced low. For 4 years, he toiled unseen, churning econ stats pieces that flew under radars beyond niche scholar circles scanned. Then arrived December 7th, 1941. The attack on Pearl Harbor reshaped the United States in an instant. Officials urgently required mathematicians in abundance to tackle wartime challenges. Evaluations of armament performance through stats, odds assessments for operation strategies, streamlining of transport and provisioning routes. By the start of 1942, the statistical research team assembled at Columbia University, backed by the Office of Scientific Research and Development. They gathered top-tier math talent on hand. In February, Wald got a summons via mail. His background in defense evaluation? 0. He'd never handled a firearm, never occupied a plane seat, never visited an army installation, 0 knowledge of plating, 0 on flight mechanics, 0 on battle maneuvers. His expertise lay in math, particularly chance theory and data deduction. And come March 1943, as the Army Air Forces delivered crates of fighter plane injury logs to the SRG, the assignment dropped onto Wald's table nearly at random. Fellow number crunchers were occupied with sub-guidance tech and sea cannon issues. Wald had time. He cracked open the initial crate and extracted images of a B-7 that barely made it back, riddled with 187 punctures. A second aircraft with its port wing torn apart. A third where the rear nearly vanished from gunfire. Colonel Groh's summary featured precise sketches indicating impact sites on survivors. Wings, 42% of detected strikes. Body, 31% of strikes. Rear, 18% of strikes. Motors, 9% of strikes. The advice from flight specialists was straightforward. Reinforce the wings initially, followed by the body, then the rear. Wald reviewed the summary thrice. Next, he grabbed a writing tool and started computing. Half an hour on, he laid it aside and fixed his gaze on the blank wall. "They're examining the incorrect planes," he muttered to the deserted room. He reached for the phone and dialed W. Allen Wallace, the SRG head. "Arrange a session with the armed forces leaders," Wald requested, his voice heavy with accent. "I must explain their complete misstep." Wallace hesitated. "Abraham, we're dealing with colonels, generals, flight authorities, Boeing technicians. You claim they're all mistaken?" "Indeed," Wald answered plainly. "They're committing a core reasoning flaw. Adopting their suggestions will lead to far more casualties." "Got evidence?" Wald eyed his figures. "Absolutely, via numbers. How much prep time? I'm set immediately. Act 4, Clandestine Review and Disclosure, 510 words, March 18, 1943, Statistical Research Group Headquarters, Columbia University. Abraham Wald labors solo at his workstation, encircled by injury files and snapshots. The space is dim, save for one table light throwing stark outlines over his documents. He's not assembling a model. He's not running trials. He's engaging in something profoundly potent, unadulterated numerical scrutiny. The vital realization strikes abruptly, akin to illumination flickering alive. All are scrutinizing the planes that returned. They're charting perforations on those that landed and presuming those spots demand protection. Yet, that's inverted. The aircraft under study endured their wounds. The perforations in the wings failed to doom them. The blasts piercing the body spared their lives. The mangled rears allowed safe touchdowns. Such regions withstand assaults. The lethal wounds, the impacts that truly wreck aircraft, mark those that never returned. The machines that plummeted in Germany, in France, in the English Channel, those no one inspects since remnants are scarce. Wald draws a new sheet and starts forming what would become known as a survivor bias examination. Assuming projectiles strike vehicles at random and munitions records verify this, then surviving machines ought to display even harm spread. Yet they don't. They exhibit dense harm in certain spots, wings, body, rear, and scant harm elsewhere. Motors, pilot cabin, fuel mechanism zone. Reason? Wald's solution: craft struck in those unharmed spots fail to return. He sketches a basic outline. Left, an aircraft marked with holes in wings, body, and rear, the familiar design. Right, an aircraft dotted in motors, pilot area, and fuel lines. The unseen design, as those wrecks litter German terrain. The numerics shine through their straightforwardness. Visible harm spots, non-lethal zones. Invisible harm spots, deadly zones. Thus, fortify the region's absent harm on returnees. It defies instinct. It clashes with all specialist views. It appears mad, yet the logic stands unbreakable. Wald devotes 2 additional days to forging rigorous data validation. He computes anticipated harm spreads under arbitrary shooting schemes. He factors in German pursuit methods and armament capabilities. He gauges the odds that the noted harm layout arose randomly if every zone held equal risk. The odds below 0.01 are beyond percent if it was practically unfeasible. Wald's documents span 12 pages crammed with intricate mathematical breakdowns, culminating in a single straightforward suggestion on page 11. The focus for bolstering armor ought to target mainly the engine compartments, cockpit sections, and central fuel management zones, regions displaying scant harm on planes that made it back. These spots highlight vital weak points where injuries ensure the aircraft won't come home. He includes a key computation. Based on his review, the existing attrition of 5 to 7% per sortie might drop to 2 to 3% through smart armor distribution across a full year of missions. That could mean rescuing up to 4,000 planes and 40,000 aircrew lives. On March 23, 1943, Wald hands over the document to W. Allen Wallace. Wallace pores over it 2 times, then dials the phone. "Get me a slot for a briefing at the Pentagon," he declares. "Right away." "What's the topic?" inquires the scheduler. Wallace eyes Wald's submission. A statistician is gearing up to inform the Army Air Forces that their flight specialists have botched the armor strategy. Silence hangs on the call. "Sounds intriguing," the scheduler remarks with a hint of sarcasm. Little do they realize the full extent of the intrigue ahead. Act 5, The Administrative Clash, 720 words, April 6, 1943, the Pentagon, Arlington, Virginia, Conference Room 3C427, the space packs with brass and badges, Colonel Malcolm C. Grow, who led the initial injury assessments, Boeing designers behind the B-17, Luftwaffe experts on materials, high-ranking Army Air Forces officers sporting stars galore, like a starry sky, and Abraham Wald in a baggy suit gripping a sheaf of documents. Major General Oliver P. Eccles, head of the Air Materiel Command, kicks off the session. "Gentlemen, the Statistical Research Group from Columbia asserts fresh ideas on armor distribution. Professor Wald, take it away." Wald rises, fiddling with his spectacles. His English comes out choppy, thick with accent. "Thank you, General. I've pored over the injury logs from bombing runs. In my view, the prevailing armor guidelines are off base." Colonel Grow leans in. "Off base? Professor, respectfully, I inspected more than 200 battered planes myself. The figures are plain. Wings and body absorb the bulk of strikes." "Indeed," Wald concedes, "and that's precisely the issue." The chamber falls hushed. A Boeing specialist pipes up. "Pardon me, Professor. Are you suggesting that spotting where our birds get struck is actually a drawback?" "The real drawback is failing to spot the strikes," Wald refines. His inflection lends an air of hesitation his stats don't possess. "You're noting hits on survivors. You're missing hits on those that went down." General Eccles furrows his brow. "We can't inspect wrecks. They're scattered in German lands or sunk in the strait." "Precisely," Wald affirms, "and that's what my work tackles." He spreads out his sketch. Twin bombers, one marked with visible wounds, the other deduced to have lethal ones. "Assuming shots strike at random," Wald elaborates, "damage ought to distribute evenly, yet it doesn't. Certain zones, engines, cockpit, fuel setups, barely register harm on returnees. Why? Planes struck there simply don't make it back." The lead Luftwaffe engineer cuts in. "That's guesswork. No way to verify crash details." Probability math lets me verify it, Wald retorts. He passes around his 12-page treatise. The equations are all laid out. Under uniform strike odds, the chance of this observed pattern if every zone were equally resilient is under 0.1%. For 5 minutes, nothing but rustling sheets and text murmuring sums. At last, Colonel Groh breaks in. Professor Wald, your math might hold water, but your inference is bonkers. You're advocating armor for unscathed spots. I'm advocating armor for spots where harm proves deadly. Wald adjusts. The Boeing man wags his head. This flies in the face of every fighter plane tenet. We shield hit zones. You shield zones where harm doesn't doom the craft, Wald parries. That's needless load. You must shield zones where minor harm spells aircraft loss. Chaos breaks out, shouts collide. Designers invoke years of aero know-how, brass summon frontline dispatches from wing leaders. One notes Wald's lack of battlefield time, no cockpit hours, no flak exposure. Wald remains composed amid the uproar, waiting it out. As calm returns, he ventures, "Might I pose a query?" His tone is gentle, slicing the strain. General Eccles assents. "In your damage checks on those bombers, how many bore engine wounds?" Colonel Groh checks his records. Roughly 9%. And cockpit wounds? Around 6%, say. Now, from matching sorties, how many bombers failed to return? Groh's expression drains. Dawn is breaking for him. Mission loss averaged 7.2%. Wald inclines his head thoughtfully. Thus, zones with 9% visible harm and those with 6% damage, those exhibit a failure rate of 7.2%. Does that strike you as mere chance, or does it imply that every plane endured engine and cockpit strikes, yet just 7% made it back to reveal the punctures? The conference room goes utterly quiet. General Eccles eases into his seat, eyeing Wald intently. "So you're claiming that what's missing proves the point?" "That's correct, General. The aircraft you don't observe. They reveal the spots requiring protection." A solid minute of hush ensues. Finally, Eccles breaks it. "Colonel Groh, what's the allotment for extra plating?" 520 pounds, sir." Eccles glances at Wald. "Professor, supposing we allocate those 520 lb across the plane, precisely where would you suggest placing it?" Wald retrieves a fresh report. "I've outlined detailed proposals. Engines demand 280 lb. Cockpit strengthening requires 160 lb. Fuel setup shielding needs 80. And how certain are you of this evaluation?" "As a mathematician by trade, General, I avoid talk of certainty. I work with odds. The odds my assessment errs are below 0.1%. The odds existing guidelines won't cut fatalities hover around 85%. Eccles surveys the gathered specialists. "Gentlemen, any dissent?" The Boeing specialist lifts a hand. "Sir, respectfully, this stands as the oddest proposal I've encountered. Gut feeling screams it's flawed. But is the math flawed?" Eccles probes, after a drawn-out pause. No, sir. The calculations seem solid." Eccles shifts to the field ops delegate. "How quickly can we roll out Professor Wald's plan? With top priority, 6 weeks for trial kits, 3 months for mass output. Cut it to 4 weeks, Eccles directs, and deliver combat trial data in 90 days. He fixes on Wald. "Professor, the Army Air Forces is staking numerous pilots on your equations." "I trust you're accurate." Wald straightens his spectacles. "General, mathematics never fails me. It's humans who often err." For the first occasion that day, laughter echoes. CTA number 1, 12 to 13-minute segment. If this tale amazes you, hold on for what unfolded during the real-world trials of Wald's unconventional shielding setup. The outcome stunned even the doubters who deemed him mad. But before that, ensure you're signed up. We unearth hidden WBD accounts like this weekly, exclusive to here. Tap subscribe and activate alerts to catch the sequel. Act 6, Trials, Battles, and Proof. 1 through 10 words. June 15, 1943. RAF Molesworth, England, base for the 303rd Bomb Group. Master Sergeant Tony D'Angelo observes mechanics fitting odd protective sheets onto B-17F, tail number 42-30255, music dubbed Hell's Angels. The shielding skips anticipated zones. Rather than bolstering wings and body, already riddled like a menthol from prior sorties, the sheets bunch near power plants and pilot area. "This ain't logical," D'Angelo grumbles to his lead mechanic. "We catch flak in the wings constantly. They're shielding the motors." The mechanic lifts his shoulders. "Directives from high command. A numbers guy insists that's the priority." A numbers guy? D'Angelo ejects chew spit. What does a numbers guy understand of incoming fire? By June's end, 50 B-17s in 3 squadrons get the trial shielding layout. The upgrade tax on 487 pounds each, mainly at motor brackets, coolant units, pilot flooring, and tank controls. The evaluation method stays methodical. Send altered bombers in matching squadrons with unmodified ones. Gauge attrition rates. Assess impact sites. Use warfare as the testbed. July 14, 1943. Sortie to Laon Airfield, France. Captain Robert P. Martin guides Hell's Angels amid a barrage from FW-190 interceptors. His escort, a regular B-17, absorbs shell strikes to the third motor and promptly falters. The motor locks up, ignites, and compels the craft to peel away. Martin's Hell's Angels absorb strikes nearly identical. Focused barrage on the third motor nacelle, yet the shielding performs. Projectiles pierce the motor housing but ricochet from the plating guarding the mount and lubricant setup. The motor persists. Martin holds position, executes the payload drop, and heads home to Britain. His escort crashes into the English Channel. 3 airmen perish before pickup craft reach them. After-action review reveals Hell's Angels took 12 solid strikes to the shielded motor nacelle zone. Routine shielding would have bared those components. The craft would have plummeted. 1 plane preserved, 10 souls spared. The trend persists through the season. August 17, 1943. The notorious Regensburg-Schweinfurt assault. The operation claimed 60 bombers for the 8th Air Force, yet the attrition figures paint a vivid picture. Routine shielding setup, 24 losses from 146 launched. A 16.4% attrition walled setup for armor placement resulted in 9 aircraft destroyed from 83 sent out, yielding a 9.6% attrition figure. That marks a 6.8-point gap. Put simply, the walled armor approach cut bomber casualties by 41%. Come September, the evidence was undeniable. Colonel Groh, who'd once resisted Wald's ideas, put together a detailed summary for 8th Air Force Command. The figures painted a clear picture. Operation results from July through September 1943. Conventional armor, 1,247 missions completed, 89 planes gone, 7.1% attrition per sortie, 890 personnel deaths or missing. Walled armor, 843 missions completed, 37 planes gone, 4.4% attrition per sortie, 370 personnel deaths or missing. The updated armor design lowered casualties by 38%, with just 487 extra pounds per plane, still fitting operational limits. Even more revealing, the nature of the damage shifted. Planes with the new armor took hits in combat, yet total write-offs plunged sharply. Bombers sporting walled protection staggered back to base, sporting wrecked wings, battered bodies, and mangled rear sections. The destruction appeared devastating, yet the planes remained airborne thanks to shielded vital parts, power plants, pilot controls, fuel lines. On October 12, 1943, during a raid on Münster, Germany, Lieutenant James "Red" Perkins flew his B-17F Ruthie II amid fierce enemy fighter assaults. A Bf-109 charged straight at them. Shells from its cannon raked the bomber's front. Traditional armor shielded the wings and body flanks, but the walled version guarded the pilot's compartment. A 20mm projectile pierced the nose, zipped past the bomb aimer's spot, and slammed into the reinforced cockpit deck. Under the old setup, it would have kept going, ripping into Perkins's chair from below. Instead, it crumpled on the steel barrier and bounced off harmlessly toward the radio gear. Perkins made it back to England, clutching a squashed bit of German cannon ammo meant for his back. He kept it in his pocket through the war's end. Once on the ground, he quizzed the mechanics on the armor. They explained the stats expert's idea. "This Wald fellow," Perkins remarked. "He's no fighter, hasn't even flown once," the lead mechanic shot back. Perkins chuckled. "Well, pass on to this numbers whiz that his calculations just pulled my butt out of the fire with nothing but figures. That's the wildest damn story I've come across." The enemy flyers took note too. Hermann Hajo Keil, a Luftwaffe top scorer with 31 victories, jotted in his journal on December 8, 1943. In the ultimate tally for the European campaign, finalized in July 1945, overall bomber missions numbered 291,508. Projected rescues from the walled armor via pre-mod loss figures, 7.1% against post-mod 4.4%, forecast 2,697 planes lost at the prior rate. In reality, 12,826 fell at the improved rate. Savings, 7,871 planes. With 10 crew per bomber, that's roughly 78,810 lives preserved. A lowball projection, at that, it overlooks dodged wounds, wrecks turned repairable instead of fatal, or the morale boost from better odds. One stats guru, 12 sheets of data crunching, 0 trials, no models, no trials runs, pure logic from math alone. And close to 80,000 U.S. flyers returned home because Abraham Wald spotted the unseen in the numbers. The key intel is what's absent from the records. This tale's close will stun you, revealing how Wald's genius keeps protecting people now in unexpected realms. Hang tight for a couple more minutes to catch the current ripple effects. And if you're not subscribed, hit that button today. We're kicking off a series of mind-blowing hidden Tabadiwas tales. May 7th, 1945, offices of the Statistical Research Group, Columbia University. Abraham Wald steps into his workspace the day after VE Day and discovers a wire from General Carl Spaatz, head of the U.S. Strategic Air Forces in Europe. Professor Wald, stop. Your breakdown of bomber weak spots preserved more U.S. lives than any single armament created in the conflict. Stop. Army Air Forces owes you eternally. Stop. Wald tucks the message into a drawer and dives back into his equations. He skips framing it, avoids boasting publicly. When peers probe his wartime efforts, he deflects. Merely math, he says to a journalist who corners him in 1946. Any solid analyst would have arrived there. That's plainly wrong. Scores of skilled designers, veteran aviators, and brass reviewed identical info and drew the reverse verdict. Only Wald's fresh perspective, spotting the voids, cracked it. The after-war reckoning is immense. Builds for Wald's armor scheme: 12,031 B-17 bombers upgraded, 18,082 B-24 bombers upgraded, 6,137 other models upgraded. Grand total: 37,256 aircraft safeguarded by Wald's work. Projected rescues: 78,710 aircrew. However, Abraham Wald's influence reaches much further than the bomber casualties of World War II. His insights into survivorship bias lay the groundwork for developments across diverse areas. In medicine, scientists draw on his ideas to explain why certain therapies seem successful. They focus solely on those who pulled through. Structural experts employ his reasoning to probe why buildings give way, scrutinizing intact structures while overlooking flaws that doomed the fallen ones. Contemporary airplane engineering continues to integrate Wald's key observation. The armor configuration in the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter relies on vulnerability assessments rooted in his wartime mathematical efforts. Passenger jets leverage probabilistic failure evaluations to pinpoint vital components needing backups and safeguards. During the 2008 probe into a Qantas A380 engine malfunction, safety experts directly referenced Wald's concept, assessing non-failing elements to determine essential defenses. The corporate sector embraces survivorship bias as a vital principle. Silicon Valley firms review collapsed ventures alongside triumphs to grasp true paths to achievement. Financial institutions dissect insolvent enterprises to uncover genuine hazards. Abraham Wald gains no financial gain from these applications. Post-war, he turns down defense advisory roles. Instead, he dives back into abstract math, producing pioneering papers on probabilistic choice-making and step-by-step testing methods. On December 13, 1950, Wald and his spouse perish in an airplane accident in India, en route to a speaking engagement. He was just 48. His New York Times death notice highlights scholarly accomplishments, but omits his role in preserving roughly 80,000 lives. In 2018, the Department of Defense launches the Abraham Wald Award for Outstanding Performance in Operations Research. The inscription states, "For deploying precise mathematical scrutiny to intricate defense challenges, transforming operational results in profound ways." The inaugural honoree remarks, Wald imparted analysis's greatest truth. Uncovering solutions isn't the toughest challenge, posing the proper inquiries is. He wondered, what remains hidden from view? That query preserved a whole cohort of pilots. At present, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base features a modest tribute inside the Air Force Materiel Command facility. It displays outlines of two bombers, one dotted with impact spots from planes that made it back, the other indicating spots where Wald demonstrated lethal vulnerabilities truly lay.